we may, and this is arguable, and we're not going to have that discussion, although we will in wholeness just for kicks. But, whether you can hack the instinct of like, if a spider's running at you, whether or not you can, be so evolved that you just absolutely stay fearless, right? You stay perfectly calm. You don't even have that like human instinct, or if somebody judges you or rejects you, that you don't have that initial like wallop to your gut that says like, you've been rejected from the tribe, you're in danger because you're on your own now, right? Like there's so many responses and reactions that we get toward things. And I think for most of us who are living, in this world, oh, I lost the people. There we go. For most of us who are living in this practical world, it would be good enough to get to the point where you have those reactions, but really quickly you override them, right? So I would say that most people are pretty impressed with themselves and with others. We're impressed with people who they may still get that initial like shock of, the snake lunging at them, or they may get, somebody insults them, they kind of get like a wallop, but they can recover almost instantly, right? They can regain their state and their, whatever it is, and then choose how to respond, right? So it's not as though there's an absence. If you think about wholeness as being one way, so it's basically saying, I'm going to make the choice to respond to the world with love, with compassion, with, deep respect and consideration or something like that, right? Say that's your sort of core way of being. What wholeness would be at its highest level would mean that no matter the circumstance, so no matter what's coming at me, that doesn't change the state of being I respond to the world with. So whether somebody's coming at me with a gun or whether somebody's coming at me like with their arms open for an embrace, I'm going to respond with compassion and deep respect and, whatever I just said. And it's possible for somebody to do that even while choosing to respond objectively to whatever's going on in the world, right? So if somebody's coming at me with a gun and I have reached this level of wholeness, I still may choose to respond objectively to that scenario by like getting out of the way or, deciding to have a calm conversation with this armed person, or, I may choose to respond in an appropriate way to the situation, but I'm doing it from a place of love and compassion and deep respect or whatever, which is consistent with how I'm going to respond no matter what's going on around me. And this is ultimately the objective, right? This is ultimately the objective of wholeness, is that we become what we are. We become the essence of who we are. And we respond to the world around us with a choice of whatever is a good response. But our core, our self, never loses resourcefulness because of what's going on, because of the stresses around us. So wholeness is the art of being able to do that in a processed way. So in a nutshell, I guess, the really processed part of doing wholeness is that you find a sensation quality. So you find, if say I'm getting frustrated with my whoever's sitting beside me, my coworker, I'm getting frustrated with them. I would, with wholeness work, I would find the sensation of frustration with that person beside me. And I wouldn't identify it. I wouldn't give it a name or an emotion or anything like that. I would just actually notice that when I feel that frustration, I can identify it as being a sensation. I might say like, it's like I get these prickly feelings all over my back. Or I might say it's like I can feel it in my jaw. There's this clenched frustration, and I would describe it as, the emotion or the whatever it is right here. With wholeness work, though, that's where we drop the contextual identification of it all. Then I would just go on to say, okay, that's where the sensation is. So when this person beside me, when I feel that frustration, I feel a sensation in my jaw. And then I ask the client or myself, they'll say I'm doing it on myself. Wholeness is great to do it yourself. Then I would say, okay, the sensation in my jaw, what is the color, the shape, the density of it, and we just stick with sensation qualities. So I may say it's, it's like red, and it's as if it's like, has this like rusty color to it, and it's really hard, and it actually like, it seems like there's a scraping sound, and it's, right. And I would describe all of that, and I would prompt with, does it seem hot or cold? And interestingly, everyone always knows. Everyone knows. They'll be like, yeah, oh yeah, it's hot, definitely hot. And they don't know that they know. And they, of course, don't even realize that this was even going on normally, most people. But as soon as you start asking questions, it's really, really, it's really real, right? And then you'll say, is it heavy? Is it light? Is there weight to it? Is it hollow? Is it dense? So you get all this sensory information. And if the person tries to, interpret that by saying like, it feels like resistance, I would just back them away and say, okay, what is it about the sensation quality that makes you think it's resistance? Is there, and then they'll say, well, because it's so like, it barely moves. Okay, it barely moves, right? So we gather all this information from the sensory qualities. And then we start the process of removing this from the familiar self. So the familiar self knows this sensation and it all seems normal. And then I would ask the person to notice then a number of things. So depending on what type of wholeness I'm using, and there's lots of variations on this, but just a basic wholeness, I would say to them then, now where is the perceiving of that sensation happening from? So I would ask the question, you can notice that there's this sensation in your jaw, right? And the client will go, yeah. And I'll say, okay, well, where is the noticing of that happening from? Where's the I that is noticing this? And almost always, and if I need to, I'll give suggestions of like, I'm looking for a location, and they'll say, oh, from like here, from right here. And then I'll say, okay, cool. What color and shape and size is that? And they'll be like, I don't know, it's this like really weird cloudy thing hanging here, and it seems almost like wet, like it seems like it has weight to it. And then we go through the whole process again, and then again, and then again. And I'll continue to ask, where is the I that is noticing that? Where is the I that is noticing that? Until we get to a place, and I'll explain this, of course, in the training, not here. But you get to a point where you may have what we call a chain. Yeah, see you, Dan. It's nice to see you. Where you would actually dissolve. Dan's already done wholeness as well. So you would actually go back through the process, and by the time they get back through the process, you dissolve and you relax, and the whole process of these sensation qualities just sort of disappear. And by the time you get back to the original response, the original sensation, it's always gone. It's just sort of dissipated and gone. And that's the process. That's the basic process of wholeness. And so I wanted to just do that little demo for you, that little sort of explanation for you, because it's a really conceptually, I mean, I do, at this front end of wholeness, I will explain to you the history of it. I will explain like, all the different sort of theories of how this works and why it works and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's a really, really difficult thing to sell, because it's really hard to kind of just like, tell somebody who hasn't actually sat here with me in this way, what it is that they're buying. But I think it's something that it bears a lot of use at a personal level. Like, I think that anyone, if you guys are thinking about it, or if you know people who you've thought about maybe interested in something like this, at a personal level, this is probably one of the ones that I use most on myself, because it's so easy to do, and it's so profound. It's very subtle, but it's very profound what it can do. And it's really consistent. It's one of the ones that like works every time, works every time. And so for personal development, this is really, really good. For client work, it's fantastic. Anyone who is working at all in the realm of like body work, or if you're working with kids, this is amazing. If you're, I'll be doing wholeness more often than just once. I don't know when, but I'll be doing it once at the end of May, and then I'll be doing it again probably in the fall. September?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'll be doing it again in September. And for client work, it's fantastic, but you can even use this in like a business setting or something, because you can do really subtle work with this kind of questioning, right? For anyone who has trouble, all those AD people who just can't get out of their heads, this is brilliant. This is such a fantastic pattern interrupt, because they can't, like just about every other technique, there's ways to, and so this can sometimes be a really, really handy thing to be able to get somebody out of their AD thinking. It can also be really useful for people who are too scared, like don't have the courage yet to face some stuff. And so if they don't want to deal with it in words yet, this is a really good way to be able to go into some really deep work with people. We have the trauma model, which we would always use, but Connie Ray certainly talks about being able to deal with really heavy trauma that people can't otherwise deal with because they're just not willing or able to go there. And this is a way to get there, or certainly to open so that they could then do things like the trauma model and stuff. So that's what wholeness is. I just, in terms of the I don't even know what it is. Is it a Friday or Saturday, or a Saturday, Sunday? Al?
Friday, Saturday, I think.
Right.
I don't know.
Okay, I think we decided that we would do a Friday, Saturday, which doesn't take everyone's whole weekend. And my trainings tend to be like 9 till 2 or 3 or something like that. So that's coming up in May. And if you have any questions about it, you can ask me now, or you can book a consult with me. And I can explain it further to you.
Hey Tara, if you're wondering where I've gone, I've lost my camera, so I'm just the face.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, and if you have any questions about dates or logistics or anything, Sam's the person. Get a hold of Sam. She'll walk you through, and if you want to register, she'll walk you through the registration process. So Sam handles all of that stuff.
Tara, are you going to have a date for the advanced?
Right. So the advanced, I believe, is we took, what we did? We took it out of June because it was going to be June, and then we replaced that with the advanced CT. So it will be.
Don't make it up, Tara. Sam will know.
Okay, I'll find out.
Yeah. The answer is yes. The when, I don't know.
And then, so the CT, the one that that I did with you guys, is that considered the advanced, or is that considered the first level? That was
that's the first level, the one you did with Mark.
Yeah.
That's the first level.
Okay.
Yeah, the advanced CT you can either do directly with the Andreas's. They offer a really long advanced. It's like 10 weeks or something. Yeah, it's really long, but it's like Saturdays, 3 hours on a Saturday or something like that for 10 weeks. Or I'm going to do the advanced the last weekend in June, 2 days. Yeah, the other thing I just want to add, these additional techniques, CT and wholeness, they're just really, really, really nice to have. Once you get going, once you've been working with, a lot of clients, you'll find that you're looking for other stuff, other ways. I don't know if anybody yet here has, felt like they've brought their client on the timeline, like a lot of times, and you feel like it's just really nice to have these options, these different options that are right in line with what you're doing, but really give your client an alternative way to be able to go into some of these issues. And I find clients are really, really, really open to it. Wholeness, I admittedly, I don't do with everyone, because some people it's too out there. If there are, for some people, they just are never going to buy that, like dissolving the red square in front of them is going to have an effect in their life, and that's fine. I just leave it alone, with those ones. I don't even attempt to. But when you have these other ways of just being able to go in and create some variety, it's really helpful. Tanya. Thank you for your card, by the way, Tanya. It's so lovely.
Oh, you're welcome. On what you just said, my question is kind of about the practicality of it. I know that there's, not a linguistic component of it, but what is it good for in terms of presenting problems?
So I use it mostly for, I don't know, I'd say mostly for healing. I'd say half the time I'm using it for healing. I definitely use it when it comes to like people who are struggling with autoimmune stuff. It's really, 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 really good for that. I've probably seen the most results with like autoimmune stuff. It's fantastic for skin issues. So I just like this week, I had a woman who was dealing with really embarrassing flush skin. Like every time she speaks basically to anyone, her face goes like bright red, and has, you know, her whole life. But it's really embarrassing to her because it, you know, she can't hold a meeting or anything without that happening. And we have been doing the wholeness work, and this is probably the third round of it. And it just like completely disappeared. It's like we got it, like whatever it was. And I cannot tell you, and this is a client that had to have really strong like faith in herself that she was going to be okay not understanding what it was, right? Because you know, you don't get this story that you get after a bunch of this stuff where it's like, oh my gosh, we realized that when I was 4, you know, this happened. Like, you don't get that, right? What she realized was that there was this sensation. And when she moved away from the sensation, and the sensation felt as though it was missing things, and when she was became aware of the sensation that it was missing, and was able to identify, you know, that it all dissolved and it went away. And it was so evident because it, like, every time she spoke to me, her face would go red, and it stopped. So she had to be okay just not knowing, right? So yeah, so physical stuff is awesome, because even think about it, right? I mean, every time that we are using a linguistic tool, we're really relying on the unconscious mind to find the right words, like the right, you know, interpretation of it. And this doesn't have to do that. So, and then anything else, I mean, I use, I'll tell you really quickly, I don't want to go past, oh, we're already past 8:30. Really quickly, I use it for identity. So if you have an identity as X, right? So I am the irresponsible one, or I am the one who makes peace in my family, or I'm the one who always screws everything up, you know, or any role like that, any identity level thing. Again, in healing, you know, I am not healthy, or my body doesn't heal effectively, or something like that. Those identities are like it just embedded in our being, right? So those are fantastic for wholeness. Anything that you can think about that has like webs and webs and webs of stuff around it. Certainly, yeah, inner authority. Catherine just said inner authority. So inner authority is one that we use if there's any aspect or element of shame, of judgment, of humiliation. If there is you cannot have the experience of shame or humiliation, of being judged, of being not good enough, if there isn't some invisible body most of the time who has a standard that you are not meeting, right? There has to be a standard somewhere that you're not living up to. And so we have these internalized authorities. So throughout our lives, we pick up these authorities that tell us that we're, you know, what the standard is, or what the expectation is to meet. And, you know, we do a lot of good work around that with timeline and the other stuff. But I do find that this is really effective at just getting into the cracks of what that is, that internalized authority, and it allows you to reclaim authorship of your own life. And so I use it for that a lot. I use it for any attachments. So I would say that some of the really, really powerful healing work I've done has been the attachment to healing. I must heal. I must be well to be happy. I must get pregnant to be happy. I must, anything that you have an attachment, I must reach this goal to be successful. So any attachments, you know, the old Buddhist idea of like attachments cause suffering. You know, it's true. So
let me jump in for a sec, Tara.
Yeah.
So with every one of those statements Tara just said, normally we would hear a limiting belief in it. And in pure NLP, we'd ask, where were you when you decided that? So here we're going to the next level beyond thoughts and feelings, because in NLP we're working in the realm of thoughts and feelings, and we're working with almost like a higher consciousness. Where is the I that is observing this, right? So it's out, as Tara said, it's outside content. Most NLP techniques, even timeline therapy, even though what we say we work content free, when we're getting learnings or clearing stuff, we're still into some fairly wordy descriptions of learnings and other things. And this gets you by. I think it gives you a variety tool as well. I mean, you know, all of us, some of our longer term clients, depends on how fast you work, whether your clients get fatigued or not, or how many times you've had to use a particular tool on them. This gives you another variety, but it gives you variety vertically as well. Now you're beyond thoughts and feelings, your higher consciousness. And I would suggest to you that, you know, in our hierarchy of stuff, we do, when we're clearing negative stuff, we start with big techniques. But when we're doing positive installations or positive reconnection, wholeness would come at the end of the positive sequence, because it's such a massive tool, right? So now that you experience that love, and you could use it that way. So think about it as a variety tool that's highly effective for a number of things. And if that makes sense. Who's chatting with us, Tara?
And then in the advanced wholeness, which I'm not doing yet, but we do things like dreams. You know, you can bring your dream, if you're getting nightmares and dreams, you can use wholeness with dreams, which is really powerful. You can do it with the other. So you can actually send sort of energies back to other people that you may have given your energy to, and allow a reclaiming of power within the self. So bringing back the energies that have been dispersed in your life. Like, there's lots of ways that we use this, just really it's spiritual. I mean, you know, we tend to avoid that word because we don't want the connotations, but it is very spiritual in that way, and can be used that way. And certainly if you have a spiritual basis, you almost always end up with God at the end, which is kind of cool. But if not, it's also fantastic for, you know, secular frames as well. Yeah, and in the advanced one, we go into also really deeply into healing, actually, like specific types of healing. All the indescribable stuff, right? All the stuff where it's like, I don't know about you, but there's so much stuff where I'm like, it's just this like, ugh. Like it just, and as soon as I start to put it into words, I know that I have reduced it. Do you know what I mean? I'll be like, I'll just be in this like fucking shit thing that happens. And then I'll be with my coach and I'm like, okay. And she's like, well, is it this? Is it this? Or is it that? And then we get it into like words, and it's less than, right? It's now constricted into something, and that it doesn't encompass it. It doesn't like, so with wholeness work, we can just be like, okay, whatever that is, what is it? And I'm like, it's this big thing. It's this like thing that is just like there. And I know when it shows up, and it's right. And then wholeness work is fantastic for that. Yeah.
I'll do it all myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.